So I'm on the line here with Christine Erna, who many people regard in the mail industry as a mailing queen. She's a frequent sponsor of MailCom and the National Postal Forum, currently with Highmark Health that processes about 250 million records a year for mail, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And Christine, I wanted to get on the line with someone who is nationally recognized mailing expert to talk about 3 things they should know with respect to their Salesforce CRM data. And the first thing I want to ask, and the thing that I think is most confusing for most people, is the difference between address verification and NCOA or change update. Can you tell people the difference between those 2 things and why they're important?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, Scott. It's great to see you. And as you know, address quality is a great passion of mine.
Yep.
And I mean, there's just so many different levels to it. So it's a great question, one that's often very misunderstood and confused by people.
I cannot believe how many conversations I have where people think address verification does what they think it does, and
no, it does not.
So what is the difference between address verification and change update or national change of address?
So there's 2 software components within the industry, as we know, that deal with that. Coding Accuracy Support System, which is the CAS component.
Address verification, I think, is what most people call it in the Salesforce world. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that is validating and verifying the physical address and making sure through delivery point validation, which is a further step in the CAS process, to make sure there's a physical house to deliver mail there to, or a building. So that is just looking at the physical deliverability of the address. It doesn't care who lives there. And that is the end of address validation.
You frame that so well, because the way I put it is address verification has nothing to do with your client, patient, or prospect. It has to do with a house, dwelling, or apartment that's there.
Well,
and that's it.
I mean,
so
it's just, I mean,
nothing to do with the most important thing, right? You're in your case a patient,
right?
So then NCOA, what does NCOA do then?
Well, I mean, as we know, the statistics on how transient the population is within the United States is pretty extraordinary. There are 100,000 change of addresses filed every day with the Postal Service. And I think it's over, 35 million change of addresses annually. So if you don't think some of those people are within your database, you're sadly mistaken. And
there's always a few of them. Sometimes
in addition to that, not only are we a transient population, there are some people that don't tell the Postal Service by filling out a change of address that they've moved. So that's always a challenge. But for those people that do fill out a change of address, the second component in software is NCOA Link, which allows you to, prior to your mailing, checking your records, your mailing addresses, your database, checking all of your names and addresses against the Postal Service's database of everyone who's filed a change of address, and finding those matches, and then providing you with, for example, if you filed a change of address, I would find out what that is and be able to send your mailing to your updated address, which is what the goal is, which is what the Postal Service is expecting, and which is why the move update compliance exists.
Right.
But a lot of people miss closing the loop on that. Well, you can identify that change of address and put it on the mail piece. You now have to get it back into your system of record where you're housing and managing that data, and put that updated address into that system of record, so that the next time you're due a mail piece, we're selecting your record and it has your new address in there.
So this is probably a stupid question, but I mean, both of these things, address verification and NCOA, have great value. There's no doubt about it. I mean, is there an opinion? I mean, do you have an opinion about which one of those things is more valuable, or are they really just kind of like?
Well, they work in concert with each other.
They do.
They do. And a lot of the NCOA software includes a CAS component right within it.
Sure.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, validating the physical delivery address information provides you a higher matching rate for that change of address information versus if you have a dirty address and trying to, match to where Scott's moved, because the NCOA matching logic by the Postal Service is pretty tight, obviously, for fraud and security reasons.
Yep. You never get a false positive on it. It's always kind of dead on.
Well, they're either going to, it's either going to match within their tolerance or it's going to fail. There's no gray area there.
Right. Well, that's what CAS is all about, right? Is that standardization. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, people find that they pay great money to have verification and completely obviate or do not even pay attention to NCOA. I mean, I sell an NCOA product because I always think that's more valuable because it is tied to the client or prospect. But if you're spending money on verification, I would say you're wasting it if you're not doing NCOA, because you end up verifying addresses that no longer look at, and you're throwing your money away at that point. That's kind of where I come from on that.
In my mind, you wouldn't do one without the other.
Yeah. Okay.
They're just a companion product that work well together for the ultimate goal. And that's what sometimes people lose sight of, that in our case at Highmark, the member experience is, the number one mission and priority here. And, we get undeliverable mail, and that's, an impact to our member that they did not get the communication.
Very few people think about they don't think about the reputational damage of not doing NCOA. It's depending on what you're doing, it can be very, very caustic. So I guess that's the first point I wanted to make, is like, what's the difference between CAS and NCOA and why you need
both? And I think we hit that nail on the head.
Hopefully you understand a little bit more about that. The other thing I get sometimes is like, I hear this often. I can't change my address of record, or that's illegal, or there's no compliance for the address of record. So, I guess the question I would ask then is, to an expert like yourself, is, should you change your address of truth or your address of record? Should you do that?
Yes, when your internal policies allow you to, and challenging those internal policies to be able to. So I just want to expand on, there is no law anywhere in this country that prevents anybody from updating an address in a system of record. There are policies established by organizations, government agencies, to that governance, process. For example, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They rely on the data coming from Social Security Administration. So that would be something that in our world, when we find that change of address, we can't update the system of record because we don't own the data. And Social Security owns that. We're borrowing it to provide a mail piece.
Okay. I don't want to get off in the weeds here, but
that's okay.
I'm just going to tell you why I think that's stupid. A lot of the stuff ends up at a commingler, and they're going to change that after the fact when it leaves their door anyways. And so it doesn't matter what your governance. That's the thing that really I think is confounding, confusing, and I would say dumb is that it doesn't matter what your policies are when that stuff leaves the door. Something's happening to it that's directly opposed to that. So I don't know. I'm just making a point. I mean, I just think some of the stuff.
It's absolutely true. When I got here, I mean, I said, well, we can't change the address. We can't change the address. So I went to the data governance and privacy teams.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, so you actually took that on and said, listen, this is already happening, guys, and edifying that group into kind of it doesn't matter what you think on this stuff.
Well, I mean, the outcome is there is no policy.
Sure.
And,
and I hear that all the time, There's a law.
Exactly.
Here's what I hear. There's a law against that. I don't know where that comes from, but
Well, I appreciate seeing that law. If you can show it to me, please.
there's no law or whatever. That doesn't exist. I can't show it to you. So the last thing I want to ask you, and this is another thing that I think people are, it's probably one of the worst problems I see, and that's that they don't know how the NCOA database works, or to frame that in a different way. I'm having someone else do this. We send our stuff to a mail shop. They're doing the NCOA. We're covered. Why is that a lie? Or why is that just simply not true? How does the NCOA database work? I mean, like, I think that's a really important thing to understand.
So there's a couple of components to that. The NCOA database working is one thing, but compliance in meeting your move update requirement for mailing and obtaining discounts is something different. So when you're asking the Postal Service for discounts on your mailing and you're using software to sort the mail and get those discounts, part of the requirements are meeting at least every 6 months your address verification piece through the standardization. And then the move update requirement is that you would have applied move update standards to the mailing list within 95 days of mailing.
Yep. Yeah, the 3-month period. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the best practice that we use is every time that we do a mailing and we're processing a mailing file, we always run it through NCOA. And we
yeah, you know what? Okay, so let me frame this in a little bit different way. I mean, because you're getting more at the why. And why you run NCOA is it's down to the business case, and those business cases aren't equal. Like a mailer has to do that for compliance reasons to obtain a discount. That is why they're doing it.
Right.
But I guess more to the point in the risk that a CRM or someone who's managing a database, a house database that takes that data out and then sends it somewhere to be going on. It's more of a how the NCOA database works from an 18, 48 month, and the rolling thing is kind of more what like that, because I think that when people say someone else is doing that, it's like, it's such a conditional response. It's like they're doing it for a period of time, but after a while, if it's over 48 months, you're not doing it anymore. If you're still pulling stuff out of your system of record, because that address is dust. It doesn't exist anymore. And now no one is running move update, and you could potentially get your discounts clawed back because you're not running a move update process at that point. And I think like people do not realize that, you never hear about the stuff, but a knock on the door, you owe us $2 million for postage. What do you mean? You didn't run move update? Yes, we did. We've got all the records. And they're like, but you didn't. So like, how does that, can you explain how that happens?
Well, I mean, I think I alluded to it earlier in closing the loop.
Yeah, you got to close that loop and get the NCOA change back. But, I think that the thing that is most misunderstood is that daily, it's a rolling database, meaning that
exactly,
if someone's moved,
there are different levels of licensing for NCOA, but the Postal Service maintains a change of address for 48 months.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah, if there's no 49, there's no 50.
There's no 48 months in one day.
Yeah,
and they have what they refer to in the data processing reporting is daily deletes.
Yep.
So when you run your mailing list through the software, it's going to tell you how many of your NCOA records are going to be deleted tomorrow if you don't make those changes.
Yeah, very few people are paying attention to that.
I mean, the speaking I do and educating I do in the industry, and it surprises a lot of people, is that daily delete. I mean, these records expire, just like milk expires in your refrigerator. The NCOA database has an expiration period.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to close, I mean, to recap the three things, CAS and NCOA, they're I don't know how to put this analogy. They're peanut butter and jelly. They have to go together.
Well, yeah, they're just
One without the other really isn't getting you where you want to go.
no.
You can absolutely change your address of record. That's something you actually should do based off of what you just said there.
Yes.
And if you think someone else is running your NCOA, they're doing it for a different purpose. And if you're not updating your CRM, I don't know, you might be in trouble. You might not.
There's always, I mean, it's an exposed risk is what it is. But more importantly, beyond the risk with the Postal Service is the risk of losing contact with that person.
Yeah. Well, after that 48th month, the 49th month that's a problem, right? I mean, because, and companies just never do this. I mean, there are proprietary change of address databases out there you can reach into, but you're talking about an extraordinary cost to try to figure out who those people might be. And that's usually a deal killer. I mean, there's very few reasonable alternatives after that. I mean,
Right.
So, I mean, I appreciate your time. I like, hopefully, I'm really trying to edify the Salesforce community to understand not data better. That's the frustrating thing for me. Like, people get data better than me all the time. I mean, like data, because data is a wide and deep pool. The address data is a narrow pool, and I don't know how
it's a specialized, important pool.
Yeah, but
because it makes everything else work.
The thing is like what I see, especially in Salesforce, is that I was going to say they're sinking, but they're not. They're treading water. They're treading water with address verification, understanding that address verification does more than it does. And then eventually, if you just stick with that strategy, you will sink in that pool. There is no saving you after, like it takes 4 years for nearly half of your data to get into that database. And if you're not updating that stuff, I mean, in 10 years, you got nothing.
Right. And I would just say, taking a more proactive approach in managing your data, and not having to be reactive to it and getting to that 49th month, doing it every single month and making the changes and applying what the CAS results are. It's only going to make your mail piece more deliverable, which is what your goal is.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the stuff for mail pieces, and I mean, obviously that's where your mind's going to go because of where your background is. But like, I think the biggest thing right now, at least in the Salesforce world, is the agentic AI movement and approach. And your AI has to be trained on data that's wholesome, that's true, that's valid. I mean, you talk about these AI hallucinations, and I can tell you where some of them are coming from. Don't send mittens to someone living in Florida. They've moved. I mean, it's just one of those things where your AI execution.
Well, they're trained by humans in what we teach them.
Right. And if your Salesforce instance doesn't have an NCOA strategy or a move update strategy, man, your AI, your agentic component on that thing is going to be hallucinating a lot.
Right.
They say that's not a good thing for AI. I don't know.
Well, I want to wish you success in your Salesforce process there. And for anyone that needs, a reference to Scott, I'm happy to provide it.
You know what, Christine, I thank you so much for that. I cannot tell you how many people from the industry are cheering me on right now because they see this as, some of them see it as an existential threat because the data they're getting out of there, if it's marketing campaigns, their marketing campaigns are seeing a degradation. I was just on the phone earlier today with someone, another mailing expert. In the statistics, I was looking at them a couple of weeks ago, like return mail is actually increasing. The problem space we're talking about right now is actually getting worse. In the last 10 years, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And that is just insane to me. If anything, we've got the tools, we have the understanding on this stuff. Let's go solve a problem. I mean, and this is it's not an easy nut to crack, but we've got an automation strategy that kind of takes all the pain of it away. So,
Well, and that's the important piece is, you know, a lot of people are sometimes intimidated by, you know, the challenge around it. And, you know, reaching out to experts like yourself with a tool that you have just by a few clicks makes it so easy.
Yeah, the feedback we've had has been unbelievable. I mean, people are like,
Yeah.
it's, I always laugh because there's, you know, I'm sure there's an audience with a side eye going, what's that guy doing over there? What's this all about? Not paying too much attention. And the people who are engaging are like, they're literally shocked at how bad their data is, or kind of, you know, like, this is what's coming back. And I'm like, don't be shocked. I mean, it's, you know, it's not easy to fix.
I mean, you think about data is just, you know, constantly changing. And if you don't have that process to consistently keep up with the changing, it's going to get, I mean, they degrade on average 1% a month.
What do you mean by that?
A mailing list, if you don't do
any, okay, yeah,
if you don't do any, you know, management and cleansing and verification and updates to that, you know, it's going to degrade 1% a month.
Yeah, if you look at a Salesforce instance in 4 years' time, and I use 4 years because the 48 months, it's what we can get our hands around and fix, and it's mind-bogglingly bad if you're not using the strategy. Some of these guys are doing it manual. I, you know, bless them. I like that. That's what you have available today.
Right.
Outside of my solution that automates the whole damn thing, you know, that is your next best path, is to manually take tranches of data, spend 30 hours. It depends on how big your database is. I talked to one guy who says, yeah, it takes me 30 hours to do this. He's not doing it as often as he needs to. I can tell you that.
Well, at 30 hours a pop, I would expect not.
Well, and you know, by the time you factor, he's paying more for his access to an API. So he's paying more than I would charge for our entire managed package. Okay. Wow. And then the 30 hours. And I don't know, this is something that's a little bit outside my purview, but I would think that there's a little bit of a risk to doing that stuff manually. I'm sure there's some guardrails.
Oh, without question. Without question. At all costs, you don't have any human intervention.
Oh, yeah. That part makes sense.
There's so much risk there.
Well, Christine, I really appreciate you spending time with me this morning, and hopefully, you know, people will get at least a little edification out of here. I wanted to keep it short. That didn't really happen the way I thought it was going to, but you know, this stuff is complicated and it needs some explanation. So
it does. And thank you for having me, and I appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Christine. I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. You have a great day.
You as well, Scott.